TV 1061, conceptualizing your ideas across the world and beyond. TV 1061, conceptualizing your ideas across the world and beyond. TV 1061, conceptualizing your ideas across the world and beyond. TV 1061, conceptualizing your ideas across the world and beyond. TV 1061, conceptualizing your ideas across the world and beyond. TV 1061, conceptualizing your ideas across the world and beyond.
Well, hello everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to our show. We are live streaming today to you from Douglasville, Georgia, where unfortunately it's a little bit of a sad day today. We have witnessed again another loss of a black man at the hands of our police, and we are devastated here today to have to say that. So our condolences go out to the family of Rashard Brooks.
Yes.
And our prayers over our community as well. We do, however, have an interesting show planned for you today. I am LJ, and I'm here today with Kay. Would you like to say hello?
Hello, everyone. Great day.
And we have a guest here with us also, Yolanda. Would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Yolanda Grace here.
Okay. We want to give a shout out to Kat, who's out today. We miss you, girl. We hope you're feeling better, but we also hope you're having a good time.
Happy birthday, Diva.
Happy birthday.
It's her birthday. So everyone, please remember to like and share our page today, and be sure to comment because we'd love to have your participation in the show. Now, before we jump into today's topics, I do want to take just a quick minute to give a shout out to our producer and the owner of TV 1061, Mr. Felix Washington.
Woohoo!
And we also want to give a shout out and a thank you to our director of social media, Ms. Shantae Barksdale.
Yes, thank you, Shantae.
Yes, indeed.
you
Yes,
all.
indeed. We have two sponsors today for our show, Ms. Katrina Sticks with Phlebotomy and Laboratory Services, If you are in need of her services, please give her a call at 404-734-2990. And then also Freedom for Families, Wealth Mindset. If you are in need of their services, they can be reached at 678-783-6380. All right, so moving right along, ladies, to our first topic. Now, before the murder of George Floyd on May 25th, COVID-19 was the predominant topic of everyone's focus. Many states had begun to reopen businesses and public locations like beaches and restaurants and churches and all kinds of things. And this was going on even though new cases of COVID were being reported every day. Deaths were still being reported, and there was no indication that there was a vaccine that was, coming up anytime soon. As of last Monday, CNN reported that our cases across the United States had reached over 2 million cases. 2 million in the U.S. So, Yolanda, tell me what you think. Was the decision to reopen a bad decision, and should we still be concerned?
Well, that's a hard call to make because of the fact that I'm not a scientist or a doctor. So I can't give like a scientific approach, and I just feel like the nation as well is like in an experimental phase, like trying to just take the counts, see how it is socially, see how it is economically, because economically we're failing and falling. So there is only so much we can last with being like self-quarantined. So with that being said, of course nobody wants to be sick and nobody wants to continue to spread a virus, a pandemic. So I honestly don't have a personal opinion on it because I just happen to self-quarantine still. But I am glad to see that, some of the businesses are back in operations. But I am still very concerned. I do not feel like I would like to go directly back into regular life. I do want to kind of like wait it out for myself and my family personally. But I am relieved that economically we are beginning to reemerge.
To get people back into employment and back in the workforce.
Exactly.
Understood. What about you, Kay? What are you thinking?
I think I don't think that they strategized it a good way to have everybody go back into society and do what they call business as usual. Because it's not business as usual at all, because this is the new norm. I mean, you have to have your kids and yourself wearing masks. You have to still take the precautions, and please, y'all, they're not talking about the different things that's going on with corona, and we're being bombarded with all of the other horrific things that's taking place. But please do not forget that we still have to take safety precautions because the coronavirus is still out there and the numbers are rising. Please understand that they're definitely rising, and I'm not going into no large areas either. I'm not doing that.
And I noticed too, if people are starting to get, it seems to me, a bit more comfortable. I've gone out in the stores a few weeks ago. When I went in the store, it seemed like everybody had on masks and gloves. I went to the store a couple days ago and hardly anybody had on a mask.
Right.
So it does seem like people are getting more relaxed and more comfortable,
right,
even though there doesn't seem to be a basis for the decision to do so. So Dr. Fauci recently identified the needs for schools to start having conversations about schools reopening in the fall. Some districts, like I'm in DeKalb County, and in DeKalb County, they're already starting to have like town halls where they're bringing stakeholders in to talk about what it's going to look like and what people think about reopening schools in the fall. What do you guys think about that? What are you thinking, Kay?
I think it definitely needs to be a strategic plan put in place, because you're talking about the teachers and the kids. Already the classes are full with 25 students in a class to one teacher. How are you going to safely protect not just the teacher, but protect these kids too? And me, myself, I don't have small kids, but I do have, young grandkids. And I do have a granddaughter that goes to school, and then I'm very concerned about her being in school and my cousins going to school, and I have friends with kids, so I don't think the safety part of it is really planned out. And I don't even know if there's a true safe way to do that, because you can't have kids just sitting still. What about the kids that has autism? What about the kids with ADHD? I mean, kids alone are not made to sit still for 6 or 8 hours. I mean, you can barely get them to sit still for a half hour, just to take a little break. How are you going to do that for school? And you're talking about no recess? I'm truly concerned about the kids with the special needs, and also the kids who have to be at home, who may truly not have what they need at home to even get the lessons that they need.
Right. And we're actually going to be talking about that too. I'm glad you brought that up. What do you think, Yolanda? How should schools be preparing? What should we be doing, thinking about this right now?
So as far as the COVID itself, I think that we definitely need to wait until we get a total green light about how the virus will affect us and that it's actually cleared before I will personally comfortably send my child back to school.
I hear you.
Like you said, later on we'll talk about how it feels to homeschool a child, which is it's challenging, but as far as just on the aspect of the COVID virus, I do not want to risk the health of my child, my family, my neighbors, and my community by reopening schools without the proper precautions. And I just don't want to, especially children's immune systems are weaker than adults.
Yes.
And I heard that the senior citizens and the weaker people with weaker immune systems are the ones that have the most detrimental effects. So I don't want to put children at risk until we know it's safe.
Right.
And I was talking to someone today who brought up a really interesting question. I thought, something that I hadn't thought about before, is that we keep hearing all this talk about there's going to be a second wave of COVID. And, if you really think about that, what does that mean? What does that look like? How do we know the difference? How do we distinguish one wave from the first wave? What do you guys think about that? How are we going to know that we're experiencing the second wave of corona?
That's a great question. Because I honestly don't know what the first wave looks like. Personally, I mean, I've had relatives, only one relative who has had COVID, and he was a police officer that works amongst the public, and it wasn't even in Georgia. So I personally don't know what it looks like, but I've seen it on media and TV. I don't know what it looks like, so I honestly don't even know what a second wave would look like, because to me, I feel like I'm being programmed with fear and chaos all the time, but then in my reality, I don't see it. And I know that might sound really discounting or shallow, and I hope and pray that I don't call any bad luck on my house, but I really haven't seen it personally up close. Have any of you all seen it up close and personal?
Well, I can tell you, I did lose one of my first cousins who was a nurse in New Orleans. She immediately, when the COVID, I won't say when it came about, when we first heard about it in March. I mean, 2 weeks she fought for her life.
Oh, wow.
And she died on March 31st. And she left behind 2 kids, And so, me being in the healthcare profession, I can just tell you, people are going to be confused with, is it the flu?
That's true.
You can possibly be confused right now. Is it sinus? Is it just a regular cold? So I do think when we start getting the cooler and colder days to come amongst us, it's going to be havoc. If we thought it was chaotic these last 3 months, I don't think we've seen anything yet until it really gets cold, because the flu season is going to approach us, and they're saying it's some say it's like the flu, some saying it's not like the flu. All I can tell you is be careful. Be very careful and take all the necessary precautions and do what you can to protect your immune system. If you can go without going to the hospital, please do that. Please do that.
Which they do say, they do promote that as well, that if you feel sick, if you're not feeling well, supposedly you can self-care just by quarantining and things like that at home and get over it, get well. That's what I've been seeing in some of the reports and things that I've been reading. But me personally, if I think that I'm sick, I'm going to the doctor. If I think one of my kids is sick, they're going to the doctor.
Well,
So-
to your doctor's office, that's different. But if you can,
Right.
eliminate going to the hospital
Hospitals,
itself,
clinics, right.
Go to your doctor's office, make the phone call to your doctor, because you want to know if it is the flu. That like when the flu season does approach, sometimes we get it confused even with sinuses.
Right. It's
So
easy
we
to
have
do.
to be sure.
It's easy to do. Okay, well, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back to you with our next topic. Don't leave us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Burke's Jewelry. How may I help you?
We're looking for engagement rings.
We offer a wide selection. However, I believe we have just what you're looking for. Burke's Jeweler is your family's jeweler at 491 Flat Shoals Avenue Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316 in East Atlanta Village.
So many Black lives incarcerated. So many Black lives silenced. When will we stop the madness?
Hi, I'm Harry Lennox, and you're watching TV 1061, your global network.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the show, and thank you for sticking with us. We do want to remind you once again to please do like, share, and comment. We want you engaged in our conversation, and we welcome your feedback. So, getting on to the next topic. We just talked about school reopening in the fall, but there is a possibility that schools will not reopen, and virtual learning will become a thing once again. As a result of the pandemic, schools across the nation were forced to close and began offering virtual instruction. School districts, teachers, parents, and students were afforded very little time, if any, to prepare for this major shift in our educational practices. The virtual learning atmosphere presented a host of issues, and for everybody really, and some of those things were just random across the board. But for example, teachers weren't really prepared to teach online. Parents felt like they didn't have the knowledge and also didn't have the time to put into their kids' learning like they would get at school. And students oftentimes didn't have the proper equipment or access to the resources that they needed to be able to keep up with their assignments and perform at home as they would at school. Researchers have predicted that students are going to suffer some serious academic setbacks with retention of knowledge, and that they are also going to start the new school year behind. And that, of course, is a huge concern. Certain populations of students, of course, such as our poor students, ESL students, and students with special needs, are going to experience even greater losses. And how we're going to mediate for that, I don't know. So looking ahead to that, ladies, Ms. Kay, tell me what you think. What should parents, teachers, and schools be doing right now to get ready for virtual learning or get ready for a return to school if that's going to happen?
Well, me personally, like I said, I don't have small kids, but with me not having kids, I would like to still see the schools need to provide all of these kids with the resources and the equipment that they need at home. Because I don't want the kids, I know it's not what I want, but I'm saying I don't want the kids to go back to school and be in jeopardy.
Right.
And they have to still figure out a certain way. And it's not just the kids, it's the teachers too, you know? It's everyone. And then it's us at home who kids are having to go to school through this. But I see where my uncle Kenneth Lott said that
Hey, Mr. Lott.
he doesn't think that the schools should open just yet. And, you know, it's because of the safety precautions.
Exactly.
You know, so they need to send out, they paid money here in Georgia for seniors to be advertised on billboards and all of that. So that just showed us that they have money. They have money. So they need to go in their pockets and send all the students the laptops. They give college students laptops so that they can be able to utilize for their online schooling. So they need to do the same for the kids. But at the same token, I just, they have to put a better plan. And if you're going to have these kids going back to school and you're going to have these teachers dealing with having to protect themselves and the students, you need to hire more teachers. You need to hire more teachers for the smaller settings that you're saying that they need to have. Because there's no way that they're going to be able to have a class of 25 and think that you're going to be protected. It's impossible.
So looking from the student's perspective, you're saying we need to make sure that students are properly equipped. And looking from the teacher's perspective, we need to have more of them so that they can actually enforce the policies that we have to keep people safe.
Of course, because, you know, teachers have to have a break too. You know, they can't be in the class all day for 6 hours or 8 hours, however long it is that the kids are there, and not have a break. I mean, nobody on the job should have to go through that. Not just teachers, but, you know, but you have to have something in place, and it doesn't sound like to me from what I've been hearing them say, they have not thought this out well enough was going to make sense for the parents, because now the parents is going to have to get with their jobs to be able to do the homeschooling if a second wave does come.
Correct.
So it's not going to work out if they don't put a true plan in place for this.
With a better plan. Now, Yolanda, you have a small child, a beautiful son, who's sitting over there, not paying attention to our show, but he's sitting over there having a good time in his own world. But you have a child in school, and I'm assuming that you had to deal with the experience of virtual schooling at home. Do you want to tell us about that, and what are your thoughts on the coming school year?
Definitely. So it was challenging, but it also was a really great experience. So, like you said, we happen to have enough resources at home, such as just even a smartphone, a laptop, and a desktop computer. But like you said, if we didn't have those things, it would not have worked for us. And I just happened to also be laid off from my job, so I was at home. So that was the second component. I was at home. But on the other side, the thing that it created was accountability. So my son and also I had to become more accountable for my son's education. So, you know, we had to use the online portals, and then me, myself, I had to utilize like my home calendar, create checklists. And the only thing I would say that I wish was better was if they had a portal that was a little bit more streamlined as far as turning in assignments in one place, because my kid happens to have a couple of classes, so I had to find his class, find that teacher, find that assignment. So overall, it didn't take like a full day. So to tell you the truth, he could take about 2 to 3 days out the week and maybe cram it all in, even though they were encouraged to log in every day, like 1 hour here, 1 hour there. But really, you can like do all your work in a day or two, so you don't, it actually condenses your learning time, but it is a little bit more work on your behalf on just being a little bit more organized and staying up to date. Another difficulty was just last minute changes and like Zoom meetings. And like you said, the teachers weren't prepared or trained for that quite yet. But I think like if we do have to go back into virtual learning, I think they will improve on that. And I don't think it's going to be that hard as far as activities, I had to become more responsible for like being more engaged physically. And I happen to have a son; he's active. So, but it just put more accountability on me. So it kind of strengthened my family and my household, and it also like made us more accountable. And I think that's a good thing, because sometimes us as parents, we do pass it all on the teachers. We do put it all on the schools.
Point.
Like we might check their little homework, and we might, but we're not really in it with them. And I think it was a big help. I have a teenage daughter who went to a school that was really elite, and they trained us. How do you help your child, maybe on a subject that we probably wouldn't know nothing about, or that was more advanced for us? They just taught us to keep them accountable, keep their schoolwork, on the checklist, and then encourage them to think. So that's the main thing. I think during this phase, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about just encouraging your child to be motivated, to think, to be a critical thinker. So I think that would be my feedback on the
And we
whole.
have to have the critical thinking, even us as adults.
Yes.
Very important, very, very important. To piggyback off some of the things that you were saying, I still continued to work and I have two sons that were at home, one in elementary school, one in middle school. And what I found with that was kind of along the same lines as you. The accountability piece was there, but the other piece that was there for me is that I got a real good understanding of what life is like for them as students. I was floored by how much stuff, like for especially my younger one, how much stuff that he had to do in elementary school. It was mind-blowing to me, just seeing like all of the different, like you said, the different portals you have to go into. Different ways of finding your assignments, different ways of submitting assignments, different portals for doing assignments. I definitely wish that they would streamline that process to make it more effective for students and for parents. But seeing my kids work and seeing, what they have to do, how they deal with it, how they handle the stress of their work, how they handle their education, that was a good thing for me as a mom to witness.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed seeing that with them.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that there's some things that need to happen for it to be more efficient and more effective. But I did enjoy the experience to a certain degree myself. I think it's a lot more difficult, though, the more challenges that your kids have. Like you said, if we didn't have access to, the internet, smartphones, laptops, all of these different things, there is absolutely no way that my kids would have been able to sustain through the rest of the year. It would not have happened. So I agree. We need to look at resources, making sure the kids have everything that they need, all kids. And we need to look at the accountability piece and make sure that our parents feel equipped and able to help their students by knowing what those resources and things are that the students are using. Some have suggested that virtual learning was a really bad idea, and that instead of moving to a virtual learning environment, schools should have just closed and everything should have just stopped where it was and then resume and pick up later when it's okay to do so. What do you guys think about that?
I don't agree with that because you still have to stimulate the mind.
Exactly.
And you have to have the kids doing more than playing a game. These days, the kids today, because of the technology that's in place, they will never know what we knew about encyclopedias and
right.
Having to go read whatever word you said incorrectly or whatever word you come ask how to spell, your parent or your grandmother said go look it up in the Webster dictionary. Like these kids, they don't know about these things. And I think, me personally, I'm getting these things for my granddaughters because I want them to know what this is. Like you have to, the computer is like literally spelling stuff for them.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't like that.
Right. So I think you're saying that you're just concerned about the absence of learning already, like their brains are already not stimulated. What would happen if they went for months with no school? I understand.
Right. And then also I think even with that, if they do have to go to the virtual schooling, they need to think about the parents who may not be able to teach their kids at home.
Exactly.
Like you got to think about everybody. It is a lot of moving parts to all of that's going on in this world.
Exactly.
That, we probably forgot about or we're not even aware of, or, and then you got to reach out to your neighbors. You got to reach out to your other family members for help with things, you know. So everybody has to be on deck with this,
Right.
with these kids,
Right.
because it's a big deal.
Right.
It's a big deal.
What do you think, Yolanda? Should we have just shut schools down and just let the kids marinate until we felt things were safe for them to return?
Well, with that, I highly disagree. I actually am pro virtual school because most of my academic career in college was virtually. I did all of my undergrad online. I did blended classes for grad school, and I think it's progressive. I think it's the tone of where we are with technology, and I also agree that with such a powerful tool, though, the children and the youth and even the millennials kind of take that for granted. They don't know that we didn't have that the whole time, and they kind of abuse it. To me, in my opinion, I think I can say as my child abuses his technology, but I think having to go to homeschool and virtual school, it allows him to use that tool and use it for education, research, and things like that, which I don't think they would have had a chance to really experience that without this. So I feel like it is a balance. It's a great balance. It's like a chance for us to, like you even said, in our community, reach out with each other, technology, balance the technology out a little bit more, even within our own families, like, you know, be a little bit more proactive within each other's lives. So I'm definitely pro virtual school, but I think without the human element, none of it's going to really work. You still need that human, the user-friendly, the human has to control these tools that we have for it to work.
Right, right. I think that you also brought up a really good point, Kay, when you were talking about the parents and getting parents prepared to be teachers to our students. You know, I tell you, this experience taught me for sure that I am not smarter than a fifth grader. I am very educated, but the way that they do things these days is completely different from the way that they did things when I was in school. So definitely as a parent, if you are having to deal with virtual learning, just figuring out how to teach your kids is also a challenge. So we are going to take another break, and then we will be back with the third part of our show. We hope you'll stay with us.
Are you an artist, a writer of spoken word? Do you have content ready but need exposure? Get to know me. I'm Alicia, host of a new Facebook live stream show called The Flavor, where we promote local and international talent of all genres. Here are some rules and regulations to the videos that we'll be accepting. They must be radio ready, no cursing, no lewd language. You must send us contact information as well as a YouTube link to your video so we can extract it from there. Email us at 1061tv@gmail.com. And we thank you for your time.
Today's world exposes our youth to life experiences that are well beyond that which their years should allow. Violence, trauma, poverty, injustice. Our children's lives and their livelihoods are in constant danger. Wisdom, Inc. is a community-based organization designed to save young lives by reducing violence and assisting youth in their personal development. Wisdom stands for wise individuals structuring and developing youthful minds. Through our collective wisdom, we can change lives for the better. Wisdom, Inc., reducing violence, developing youth, saving lives. Okay, we're back. We're back with the next segment of our show. Thank you for tuning in and for sticking with us. We truly hope you are enjoying our show today. Before we get too far into our next topic, we do want to take a minute to give a shout out to all of you folks that are tuned in and watching us today. Kay, would you like to give a shout out to your folks that are present?
Sure. I want to thank everyone for supporting our platform. I'd like to thank Rudy Bougere, Joe Williams, Kenneth Lott the first, and Kenneth Lott the second. Vanetta Colin, Jill Hunter, Danielle Daniel, and
You good? All right, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so very much. I also want to give a shout out to a couple people that I have on my list here. First and foremost, to my beautiful son, TQ. Thank you for watching, baby. To my good friend, Jamal Cunningham. Aunt Brenda, thank you for being here as well. And also to my cousin, Roger. I'm glad to have you here, so thank you for joining. So we're going to move on to our next topic today. This past Tuesday, Georgia held its primary elections, and oh, what a night. The problems were many. So let's take a look at this list here. One of them was extremely long wait times. People reported having 3 to 4 hours that they had to wait at the polls in order to vote. Some of this was impacted by COVID-19 because there were closures to certain polling locations, as well as there being a shortage of poll workers. But there were obscene wait times to vote. Second, there were lots of technical issues with the new voting machines. People were not able to get their votes to take. There were just a lot of technical IT type issues with the machines. And this also kind of led to what was our third problem, was the training of the poll workers. Poll workers themselves were interviewed and reported to the news that they did not feel adequately prepared to respond to some of the issues that were occurring at the polls and with the voting machines. A fourth concern was the lack of paper ballots, and a fifth one was the fact that many people who requested an absentee ballot did not receive it. And so there were people who were forced to go to the polls because they would not have been able to vote had they not, which again feeds back into why we had long wait times. There were also people who received ballots, but something was wrong, like they were missing an envelope or things like that. And another issue that presented was very last minute changes to poll locations. Some people were not notified at all that their voting poll had changed. Others found out within a very short time period, less than 2 days. So tons and tons of problems with voting in Georgia, lots of concerns. Making matters worse, of course, is that the bulk of the problems occurred in DeKalb and Fulton counties, where minorities make up the bulk of the voters.
Right.
So, ladies, Yolanda, tell me, do you think that this was an intentional effort at voter suppression, or do you think it was just a perfect storm of poor planning and preparation and coincidences?
So I go with the latter.
Okay.
So I happen to be a libertarian, so I'm not a hard Democrat or a hard Republican, and I happen to be close with both. So and when I was doing my research for this topic, I happen to be close with somebody that's really deep into politics as well. Mm-hmm. And so I have a very unique feedback that I received, and a lot of it was mainly the ill preparation of the people who were working at the polls. People don't want to really admit that, but also as I was doing research, I had to figure out what is a primary. So in the primaries, when you go to the voting poll, you pick whether you're nonpartisan, and then you'll only pick your judges, or you'll pick Democrat or Republican. So whatever one you pick, then you'll pick on that side. So you're not quite battling against each other yet. You're only kind of like within your own party picking your people. So that raises the fact that it's not like a setup because you weren't directly battling the other party yet. So like who's setting you up to fail at what? You know what I mean? So I feel like with the feedback that I got, for people to say, well, it was all like a setup for me not to be able to vote, that's not true, because both Democrats and Republicans both have to utilize those same voting polls, as well as, even like you were saying, self-admittedly, a lot of the poll workers were not prepared to handle the problems. As far as the absentee ballots and things, once again, human error, but I think, once again, accountability, responsibility, and just doing your part to like be compliant on the job that you're given has a lot to do with the responsibility of if you're going to be in that position to help out at a poll. But that might not be a very popular answer, but that's the answer that I have.
All right. Thank you for Yolanda. Thank you. Thank you very much. Kay, what do you think about that?
Well, when I done the research, I saw that it was many things that hindered the day of election. One that really made me upset was, why would you hire people the day before the election to work the polls? If you know that you need to have people working these elections, hire them in advance and train them. So, yeah, people were upset with the people that were working, but they had good reason to not know what they were doing because they weren't trained. They were hired the day before, and if you have somebody that's training these people like they said that they did, they said that these officials trained everyone to go to the election polls to be able to assist with the voting on the day of election. Maybe the person who was doing the training, maybe they need to be trained. They need to be trained so that they can properly train the people who need to be there at the time of election. And then you have, this is not the first time that this happened. This has happened before here in Georgia where the machines are not working. So if you have all these touch screens and you have all these generated components where they're sensitive to water or sprays that's going to jam up the login of the devices that's needed to be used, you got to find a different way to do that. You can't know these things the day of. I'm sure they had to clean these things before the day of election. You know, it's just too much that went on that day where I think that they could have eliminated. And if you have somebody who's never been over, the elections, the Secretary of State, that was his first time. Somebody should have trained him so that he can properly train someone else. So if you have somebody that's in charge, just because you're in charge doesn't mean you know what you're doing.
Doesn't mean you're, boy, is that the truth. You said a lot there. You said a whole lot there with that comment. And I'm glad you actually brought that up. So the DeKalb County CEO, Michael Thurman, blames the voting debacle on the Secretary of State, who's Brad Raffensperger. Thurman said he should be investigated by the governor's office given all of the concerns that happened on voting day. He said, and I quote, "It is the Secretary of State's responsibility to train, prepare, and equip election staff throughout the state to ensure fair and equal access to the ballot box. Those Georgians who have been disenfranchised by the statewide chaos that has affected the voting system today in numerous DeKalb precincts and throughout the state of Georgia deserve answers." What do you think about that?
I think they may need to be held accountable for what has happened. That goes back to what I said. Somebody should have trained him. How about we just get an outside source, have them handle all of the elections? How about we check all of these equipments and devices that we have to utilize on the day of election prior to, not on the day of or the day before. 24 hours before or the day of is not enough time to know if you need to do something different. I mean, you should be checking these and calibrating these things all the time. I mean, that's what you have IT people for, and you have all these people who make these devices and they came up with the devices. So you need to go back to the people so that they can train you on how to clean and how to debug and unjam or clog, whatever words they were using. They were using a whole lot of words. But
Yeah, right.
It's easy to point the finger on someone else to get the light off of you. But like I said, they need to hire other people to handle that. And just because you're in charge does not mean that you know what you're doing.
Do you want to respond to that, Yolanda? What do you think about investigating our Secretary of State and concerns about his judgment and how he handled the election process?
Well, according to my resources, once again, it's a hierarchy. So ultimately the blame will go on that one individual. But in reality, I still hold the accountability at the level that it was at. The people who were hired to mandate and clarify or whatever y'all have to do over there to make them things work. They were hired there to do that, and they got paid. Like, they weren't volunteers.
They were hired the day before. So
Well,
if
that
you're hired
part-
the day before, it's impossible to know what you're supposed to do fully.
Well, I feel like that was irresponsible
Right.
to hire somebody the day before, because this is very serious, and because we would want to avoid these things. Prevention, and making sure that things run smoothly is the reason why they were hired. So I feel like it was a highly bad choice to hire them one day before, but then again, who's accountable for that?
Right. And I'm not sure, I didn't hear about them being hired just the day before. I was aware that some were hired, way back away, because I think our primaries were actually supposed to be a couple of months back, but they got delayed because of COVID. So it could have been a loss of learning as well. But they definitely, the poll workers themselves said that the training that they received was insufficient, that they felt ill prepared for the task that was in front of them. So we know that whatever training they had, whether they were hired last month or last week, they didn't feel prepared.
So the executive director of the Coalition's Good Government for the Voting Rights Organization, which is Maryland, she spoke on it being a problem with hiring people the day before election time.
That definitely is not going to work. That's definitely not going to work.
And there's a lawsuit.
Wow. Another thing that was brought to my attention that I really hadn't stopped to consider until it was brought up to me was, and don't get offended, but the older population that tends to handle the poll workers, that tends to be the poll workers. So as we were talking about before, we have kids that are, our kids are in a whole different generation than us. So my kids are doing stuff on their iPads and learning devices and computers and stuff that I don't even have a clue about, because I'm from back in the day when we did everything on paper. So even with me, I can see at my age that some of the technology stuff that's going on, it's hard for me to catch on to it and get comfortable with it and really be able to perform, and for me to problem solve and troubleshoot. So what do you think about that? Do we think that maybe, could the problem possibly have been that it was an older group of folks doing this, and there might be some training issues there? Real quick, where our lights on, what do you think, Yolanda? What do you think, Kay?
I think regardless to the age, they still should have been trained on new equipment that needed to be utilized, regardless to the age.
So proper training, no matter who's behind that desk, definitely needs to occur. We're all in agreement with that. All right, stay tuned. We have one more segment coming up for you after this break.
Hi, I'm Chief Gary Sparks with the Douglasville Police Department. Today we want to give you some safety tips concerning traffic stops. Take a look.
So you look in your rearview mirror and see flashing blue lights. What do? Remain calm. Yield to the right and pull your vehicle over into an off-road area that is safe for both you and the officer. Put your car in park. Remove your foot from the brake and turn the radio off. Remain in your vehicle. Have your driver's license readily available for the officer. Keep your hands on the steering wheel, visible for the officer at all times. If you need to retrieve any items from the interior, explain what you're reaching for to the officer and avoid any sudden movements. Rolling the window down completely establishes a level of trust with the officer and allows for ease of interaction during the routine traffic stop. Be courteous and polite. Be cooperative and willing to follow the officer's instructions. During a routine traffic stop, the officer will return to his vehicle to run the tag and driver's license verification and complete a citation if one is necessary. Once the officer returns and approaches your vehicle, whether or not a citation or warning is issued, please remain calm, courteous, and cooperative. Sign the citation acknowledging you agree to appear in court, and do not dispute the citation with the officer. The officer will give you a court date to explain or defend your infraction.
Okay, ma'am. Like I told you, I did clock you at 51 in a 35 mile per hour speed zone. I did issue a citation, okay? This here is going to be your court date. I just need a signature from you stating that you received a copy of this citation, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Here's your driver license.
Thank you.
Along with a copy of the citation, okay? You have any questions or concerns for me?
No, sir.
Okay, well, you have a nice day, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Following these few simple steps will help ensure a safe interaction for both you and the officer.
I hope these few tips help you as it relates to dealing with law enforcement and traffic stops. Not only in traffic stops, but in all encounters with law enforcement. We hope that all our encounters are safe for the citizens as well as for our officers. Again, we want you to be safe, and if you have any problems with the Douglasville Police Department, don't hesitate to give us a call and make your concerns known. I would add that Georgia is a right to carry state, and we hope that if you are carrying, that on these traffic stops and all encounters, please let the officer know that you are carrying. This will ensure your safety and our officers' safety. Thank you, may God bless you, and may God keep our community safe. We are one.
Hi, I'm Michael Collier, funniest man on the planet, and you're watching TV 1061, your global network. Stay tuned, because that's how they do it over here. Big time party. All right, see y'all later. Bye.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, and thank you again for joining us today. We are about to get into our final topic of the day, but before I do that, I do want to one more time mention our sponsors who we are so grateful for. Katrina Sticks at Phlebotomy and Laboratory Services, who can be reached if you need her at 404-734-2990, and Freedom for Families Wealth Mindset, who can be reached at 678-783-6380. We are very appreciative of those who have tuned into our show today, and again, we hope you're having a great time. And if you are really, really enjoying yourself, we would love for you to send us a Cash App to TV 1061 in support of our show. We like to keep it going, and we need your help in order to do that. So please consider making a donation. Kay, did you have some more people that you wanted to shout out to today?
Yeah, I see. I just want to thank Sheila Monica Blunt. I like to thank Janice Patterson, Shannon R. Williams Norwood. Thank you so much for supporting our platform on today.
Yes, and I see that my handsome strapping nephew Carlos is tuned in. I thank you for that. I'm happy to hear from you. And I also want real quick one more time to say happy birthday to our girl Kat, who's out today celebrating.
Happy birthday, Diva!
Happy birthday. All right, so we will now get into our final topic of today. There has been a tremendous amount of discussion here lately about defunding the police. While many think that defunding means disbanding, it's actually not about eliminating law enforcement altogether. That is an option, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. When the Black Lives Matter first introduced this idea, what they were talking about was divesting money that's currently in local and state police budgets and putting that money into communities, mental health services, and social service programs as a means of addressing law and order. Advocates for defunding believe it's a smarter and a better strategy. Why? Well, first, because policing doesn't address the underlying issues that often result in criminal interactions with the law. Things like unemployment, mental health issues, or lack of education. And second, because many of the matters for which police are called are not criminal matters. Police should not be handling these types of things. Professionals who are skilled in those areas should. So, for example, a homeless individual or someone who's threatening to commit suicide. These people are in need of help, but they don't need to be arrested or charged with a crime, which actually would serve to just exacerbate the problem. So those who are in opposition worry that defunding will cost more in the long run. They say that police response times will decrease or increase, take them longer, and that access to quality training and the ability to hire and retain good cops will be much more difficult to do. Yolanda, tell me what you think about this. Is defunding the police the right approach?
Well, I'm so glad that you gave that introduction because my particular research came from my favorite uncle who is a police officer. And he said that Donald Trump started this whole defunding the police thing. So I'm glad you clarified that it was a Black Lives Matter initiative, and that the underlying reasons were all the reasons you stated. And for those reasons, I do support, like, those points are great. However, from his standpoint, I do see how the police are still a very necessary means of, you know, community service for us as a country and us as a culture, because the alternative, which would be martial law, which I did hear Donald Trump say when he was threatening the looters, saying, well, I will put martial law on the looting, which is, once again, to clarify, a totally separate matter than what we're speaking of here. I don't want to live under martial law. I was in Hurricane Katrina one time, and we lived under martial law where the military were in the streets. They had guns, and you had to have, like, your ID. You couldn't be out. And if you can think self-quarantine and all these little, like, curfews are bad, you don't want to see what martial law will look like. So I agree with my uncle, the police officer, in that sense. Like, no, we don't want to just turn over our policing over to the military. But as far as you clarifying that, I'm so grateful and thankful that you did, because people can know exactly what we're talking about and address those underlying issues, and not just make it all like the police handle domestic issues, homeless issues, social issues, and things like that. So I may not want to say take away money from the police and put it there, but maybe if we can increase some funding in those areas, then I really support that.
Okay, all right. What do you think, Ms. Kay?
Well, I agree with what Yolanda has said and what you spoke on, for as putting money into communities to help our communities. There's a lot of blighted houses. There's a lot of different areas that you can help in. You can utilize that funding to support activities for the kids, young adults, people who's trying to learn different computer technology and things like that. I mean, it's several different things. And even here, right here at in Douglasville, Wisdom Inc. is a program that is ran by Mr. Felix Washington.
Yay.
Where he gives children a chance to utilize the equipment here and learn how multimedia is done. So it's people like that that you can support, organizations like that you can support, for the kids, for the young adults. You know, it's a lot of things that you can donate money to that can help. I truly think you put the money into different organizations and the kids would truly benefit from it.
Do we think that doing that, though, will impact crime, whether it be reducing crime, whether it be preventing crime? What do we think about that? If we put more money into community services, mental health, do we think it'll make an impact?
I think so. I mean, mental health is something that we don't speak on. And, you know, we have to, there's no way of getting around it. We have to discuss that. You know, it's a very important thing in life, you know. So we have to discuss those things and make sure that there's enough funding for those things, because, I mean, you can be sitting among somebody and not even know that they're about to have a break.
Right. Exactly.
So
Definitely. I'm a strong advocate for mental health and community health and awareness. And one of the things that I wanted to add on to that was, from the police officer's standpoint, is that a lot of the police officers are heartbroken over having to catch the bad backlash for some of the behavior of the bad policing that's been going on. You know, it's like, just like, it's another form of prejudice. It's like a couple of bad seeds, or maybe more than a couple, are just totally wiping out the whole faith and trust into our police system. And a lot of the officers care about our neighborhoods, care about the people, are heartbroken over the looting and the destruction. There are some monuments that have been destroyed, not just stores. Some people have pride in, like, their city and the monuments, and it's like people are just destroying the area. So I think that you know, it's just a painful thing to go through all across the board, but I'm definitely an advocate for support on both ends as well. The police need some support and training on how to, like, with some job stress, The community needs some support. We just need to support each other on a whole nother level, because it's like we're starting to eat at each other and blame the wrong things for the wrong reasons, and we're all suffering for it, and it's just sad.
It is. I agree. It is actually very sad to see that, because there definitely are some, there's good cops just like there's good of everything, but there's also just so much just sadness and desperation and pain and hopelessness that's being seen in our world right now, and it just is all very difficult to watch, I'm sure, for all of us. I read that the New York Police Department has a $6 billion budget for policing. In the article that I read this in, it talked about the fact that $6 billion exceeds what they spend. Get this list here: homeless services, housing development and upkeep, youth and community services, health and hospitals, and parks and recreation combined. So all of those community services together don't have a total of $6 billion being put into them, but policing in New York does.
Wow.
What does it say about a community, a state, a city, a county that is putting more money into policing than community service?
I think it needs to be put into the community, because the community needs to help. So that's just where I am with that.
I mean, as far as that goes, like where I live, we have a private jail. So, and I know a couple of counties around here, they're like, don't get caught in like Cobb County. Well, I live in Gwinnett County, and I'm like the most, down-to-earth person, but I'm like, don't get caught by Gwinnett County because the jail's private. I don't know the dynamics behind it all, but they want to keep those jails full. Like there's some kind of money thing going on. And just like what you just said, those numbers right there, like it doesn't make sense. Anybody can tell, like it's like that doesn't make sense. Something isn't right about it. It's like there's something corrupt and something really like business-like with this whole system. I can't speak on it because I don't know, but I just know as a citizen, like I can see it and I've experienced it. Like people are going to jail for like the most simplest things. Right. People are stuck in jail. The system has you stuck on there. If you get in trouble, the probation, it's like it's like you're pretty much, they're waiting for anything to trip you back up. Now, that's way different than rehabilitation, teaching new skills, recovery, health, and like real social activism. So it's like the system keeps you stuck versus actually like helping you and like supporting you and preventing the crime. How do you guys feel about that?
No, that's definitely a problem, and that's what we see is that people, you see that in recidivism. When people commit a crime and they serve their time, they come out and they end up repeating. That's where that's coming from, because we don't have a system in place that supports people when they get out that can help them to not go back to what they did before. So when you have a system like that, the best thing that you can do is prevent it from happening in the first place. If you don't have a first arrest or a first time incarceration, you don't have anything to recover from. And so I think that's what we're talking about is in these communities, what are we doing as far as crime prevention and trying to keep things down so that people aren't being arrested, aren't going to jail, and we're not dealing with issues of recidivism and all of these kinds of things. So we are now at the end of our show. Again, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing you next Sunday at 4:30 when we're back again with some more interesting and exciting topics. Thank you, Kay, and thank you, Yolanda, for joining us today.
Thank you.
We hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.
TV 1061, conceptualizing your ideas across the world